Hi guys, and welcome back to World of Tanks, and yeah, the final monster tank and the last of the revisits for these, which is the Kaiju O-I, tier 6 Japanese super heavy. And it is basically, I mean, well, there's no basically about it, it is exactly the same as a fully upgraded Tech Tree O-I, but using the 10cm gun as opposed to the 15cm howitzer. And nothing's changed on this apart from a rather large nerf to its rear armour, its rear hull armour and turret armour, which got nerfed from 150mm down to 105mm. Now, although it was kind of necessary, it still sucked a bit because, you know, it was 150 on the back. It was just as tough from the back as it was from the front, and with that 45mm nerf, I mean, that's nearly a third of its armour gone. In fact, well, near as damn it is a third of its rear armour gone. It has changed this tank, and it has changed the way you have to play it slightly. Even though it only had 70mm on the side, you had a certain degree of confidence in your rear armour that it could bounce shots. So if anything was behind you, you could be pretty confident, depending on what it was. But most of the sort of same tier stuff, not all, most, had trouble penning your armour from the rear. So, you know, you had that sort of level of confidence. Not so much now with that 45mm drop. It has made quite a bit of a difference. But anyway, I'm not going to get into too many details on this because, you know, it's a revisit, like I say. And it is exactly the same as the Tech Tree O-I, just using the 10cm instead of the 15cm howitzer. So you get 5 rounds a minute, 175 300, 201 300 for your premium, 53 360. Awful aiming time and not very good accuracy either, which is pretty atypical of the Japanese super heavies. And there's not much else I'm really going to talk about in that, because obviously I've done the proper review of this, and it's really just the differences that I'm wanting to highlight. And the only difference is that armour drop, which we'll have a look at in a second. Equipment wise though, I have changed since my original review. I've now got a gun lane drive gun rammer and a super heavy spore liner. In fact, I think it's a super heavy, I hope it is. Yeah, super heavy spore liner, which gives you plus 50% to armour protection from ramming and explosions, plus 50% chance to protect crew from critical damage. Now, anybody who's been in one of these or any of the other Japanese super heavies, or even big slow lumbering beasts, you know, like some of the Russian heavies, that sort of thing, or the new German ones, for instance, know how much of an arty magnet these things can be. So with it being so big and slow in the first place, because the super heavy spore liner does slow your tank down a bit, you know, it doesn't say that it makes a difference to the power to weight ratio, but you know, I'm pretty sure it does. So with anything big and slow like this, that is a, you know, a big arty magnet with a huge sort of, well, I mean, look at the size of the sort of top of this thing. It's a big target to try and land a shell on top of. You know, it makes it easier for arty. So a super heavy spore liner gives you 50% protection from high explosive, which is normally what arty are firing. So it does help out with arty. I've got one on my TOG, I've got one on my mouse, and it does make a difference when arty hits you, actually. So it is something I'd recommend. It's not cheap, but that's something I would recommend that I didn't recommend last time. Skill wise, I've not got a good Japanese heavy crew, particularly. This is the one that's going to be going into my OHO. It's just come out of my own knee, that's why I'm overtraining it. But yeah, repairs, track mechanics, sixth sense, smooth ride, because they're slow, they're not bad at firing on the move anyway, so, you know, they are quite slow, and that way you can just keep it moving a bit more. Definitely clutch braking, definitely off-road driving, maybe controlled impact. You know, you can't get a great deal of speed up. It does 29-ish, maybe, if you're going downhill. So you can't get a good amount of speed up, but then again, if you've got the super heavy spore liner, that gives you a bit of protection from ramming. Controlled impact as well. If anything does hit you and you're moving, you will do more damage to them than you would do normally, so that might be a thing. But yeah, definitely clutch braking, definitely smooth ride would be a good one. Maybe snapshot as well for your turret rotation, because your aim time is quite poor. Off-road driving, like I mentioned, and obviously Brothers in Arms, which is something I recommend on anything, but that's what I'd probably say to be going through first. I give you a quick rundown with the shells. They're quite cheap. even though it's you know, 100mm, 250, 3,600 and 190. I've been quite boring on my consumables. I don't go in this very much at all. Went in it quite a lot last year, and that was about it. You know, after I first bought it, it's quite good fun in the awakened mode. It is, you know, it is a good fun tank in there, but I've just not been in it a lot recently. I don't know. I say recently, most of this year. I don't think I've really been in it. Its bonus is a 30% silver and 30% XP as well. But like I say, with this being a revisit, I don't want to get bogged down too much into the details. Wrong one. Come on. There we go. It's mainly the armour I'm wanting to look at, because obviously that's where the difference is. So you've got a big old engine. Again, same layout as the Tech Tree O-I. People are used to seeing these now. They know, you know, people are getting used to where to hit these things to damage ammo racks and that sort of stuff. So again, there's not really much to show you in the revisit, but a lot of engine components spreading up into the side of the tank as well. And that upper side, the bit that sticks up above the tracks, that's actually one of the easier parts to pen from the side. 10 degrees of gun depression, and I think, do you know, I can't remember now, I just had a complete brain fart. I don't think the mini turrets on this get in the way of that, like they do on some of the others, although I could be slightly wrong. And I think that you've got that all around the tank. However, if anything does get too close that is quite low, you will have trouble shooting down to it. Or anything with a, you know, a tough turret like a T-29, you're going to have trouble getting down to shoot at its hull. So do bear that in mind. You don't want to get too close in one of these in case it gets below you, below your gun. Concealment is awful at 0.02, and that's stationary and moving. Oh, it's almost like it's got light tank status on that. They have the same concealment, moving and stationary. Tracks, terrain resistances aren't as bad as you'd expect, but they are pretty bad. 1.1, 1.3 and 1.8. I think it gets worse as you go up the line, possibly. I can't remember. Or does it get better because the tracks are wider? Oh, I can't remember now. Anyway, that's irrelevant to this. Turret on top, radios up there as well. Ammunition blocks are in the front of those sort of upper hull corners, the shoulders if you will, and just below the tracks, but those upper ones are the easy ones to get to. Crew members, well, you've actually got one in each of the mini turrets on the front, one down in the centre, which is obviously the driver, and then you've got 3 up in the turret. There is not one in the rear mini turret on this tank, as there is on some of the ones below it. And then armour, this is where your main difference is. It's 150mm on the front of the hull and the turret, 70 on the side of the hull, 150 on the side of the turret, and now nerfed down to 105 on the rear of the hull and the rear of the turret. Now, all of that used to be 150 and was very, very tough from the back, but not anymore. It's still, you know, it's still quite tough. There is still some lower tier things that'll bounce off you, but generally, more things are going to be able to pen the back of you now, more often than not. So that is a bit of an issue, and like I said, it has changed the way that you play this a little bit. You can't get quite as close in as you would have done normally, perhaps, but it's not too bad. If you're not sure where to pen these, normally people angle them a little bit, not too much because of the sides, but they do a bit, and it gives you flat surfaces on those mini turrets on the front to shoot at. Now, although they're still 150, it's flat, it's not angled, so it is just 150. Obviously when you angle your tank, you increase the effective thickness, so the upper glacis will have an effective thickness much greater than 150. Even that upper bit, which is slightly sloped, will be a bit more than 150. So sometimes the flatter parts on these, if they are angled on those mini turrets, are the easier places to hit. But if you can get around the side, put it into that upper side near the front, and you could damage the ammo rack quite easily. Near the back you can damage the engine. So the best bet with these is to get around the side, and if you're low enough, get around the side and hug the side of it, and there's not much that it can actually do to get its, well, it can't get its gun down and shoot at you. So that's well worth remembering. Stuff like an ELC can probably get right up behind it, and just sit behind it shooting into its rear, but do be careful in case it sort of reverses over you in sort of sumo fashion. In fact, I might have to try that. I might have to find an ELC and try and run it over. But yeah, that's it really. So the only difference is that it's had that armour nerf, just as the Tech Tree one has. But this is exactly the same as the Tech Tree one. So anybody who's been through the Tech Tree O-I, use the 10cm, you know exactly what you get in here, but you get in a 30% silver and XP bonus on top of that as well. And I think that's about it really. yeah, there's not really much else to say. So yeah, we'll just get into the replays and see it in action. Right, so here we are for the first of the replays. It's a tier 7 match and it's on Ensk. Now, something I don't know if I mentioned in the garage is this does get standard matchmaking. You know, it doesn't get preferential because, like I said, it is exactly the same as a tech tree one, just with the 10 centimetre, not the 15. And when you are in tier 8 matches, most of the things in there are going to be able to pen you quite easily, so you are going to have to resign yourself to doing some sort of creative side scraping, maybe trying to find some sort of location somewhere you can get hull down, which is not easy because it's a very tall tank as well. But if you can find somewhere where your turret's just sticking up, it's not too bad in tier 8, but it's still quite frustrating. So like I say, most things can just pen you, and you are big and slow and cumbersome and can't really get out of the way very easily. Now this one, like I say, tier 7, I think I had something like 5 tier 7 matches in a row from putting this on to do this, get this footage today. And then I had a tier 6 match, I think, which is the next one. And the other matches, they weren't too bad. There was one that I died pretty quickly. Team spread wasn't great, and the enemy team had sort of... Well, no, sorry, tell a lie. The team spread wasn't bad, but the enemy team had really just mobbed one end of the map, so it was just sort of they overwhelmed us, and that was it. The others were okay, but this was probably one of the slightly better ones, or a bit more interesting. I think is probably the best description as opposed to better. But there's not many tier 7s in this match anyway, so it's not too bad. Now I was going to head up the field. With me being a big heavy, I probably would have been better in the town. Oh well, I would have been alright going to the town, but most of the team went to the town. Nobody was covering the field. So I came out into the field with the medium to try and cover it, and ended up having to just sweep back in because a couple of heavies and this TD had come straight down the train tracks and straight towards our caps. Now I'm just going to bully this TD. He didn't even notice I was there. In fact, the first shot I took was a bit of an auto lock. I actually thought I'd hit him at that range. And neither was moving. I did think I'd hit him, but you know, that's what happens. That's why you shouldn't use auto lock for aiming at moving targets, and just use it for a target acquisition. But you know, sometimes advice is easier given than taken. So but he's dead anyway, you know, no harm done. I just bullied him down the train tracks, pushing him on the front of my tank. Now that M6 is taking out our arty. I think it was him. Again, can't quite see the kill log because it's a very small screen. And that medium that went down the field, he looks as though he's made it down to the other end. Unless I've not been paying attention to the map, watching the replay, so that might not have been him. That could have been one that's managed to sweep through the town, but it's looking a bit hairy. They've got a 1 tank lead on us. Now a 2 tank lead. No, back to 1 again. So it's going to be a close one, this one, I think, but this will take out the M6. There we go. Somebody else had put a hit into him, and was starting to just pull it back. We've now got a 1 tank lead. Where's that medium going to go? Is he going to come out the other side of the train so I can get him, or is he going to be dead before I get there? I think he's probably going to be, yeah, dead before I get there, and quite spectacular as well, with having his turret popped. Now, as you can see, you know, it does pick up speed eventually, and does get up close to its 29. You will do that going downhill. But don't forget I've got a super heavy spore liner on this to help with RT. It's a shame that no RT have a go at me, actually. Because you can't see the difference, but it does work. But then again, if you don't want that, I'd have gone with probably a gun lane drive, gun ram at events. Now T29, a tank I don't particularly relish taking on in one of these. He'll have no problem penning in front of my hull, especially not because he's got the 105 and he's got alongside me, but he's tracked himself, and as you can see, I can't get my gun down. I can get at his turret, I just can't get at his hull, so I've got to pull away from him, and I've managed to just pull away enough, and that was his mistake. He bounced off the rear of the tank, even though it's been nerfed. It was at a good angle though, so it was just an unfortunate aim from himself, because it was very angled as he hit the back of it. But if he'd have managed to stay close to me, he'd have killed me quite easily, and because I managed to actually pull away from him and draw back away, I could get my gun down and shoot at him. Otherwise I've had no chance. Now, this is what I'm on about with the flat sections of those mini turrets. When I'm not going to hit that roof, damn it, it's pulled back again. There we go. Go for the flat part on the front of that mini turret, and it's only 150mm thick. You know, there's no extra effective thickness because it wasn't angled at the time. But with these having 175 pen, other OIs generally aren't too much of an issue unless they're sort of at range. It's kind of 50-50 sort of. Sometimes pen in the front, you know, it goes that colour where you may pen, you may not. That was an iffy shot on the 88, so I'm going to continue trying to get round behind him and get that shot in. But the OI, well, if he can hit his commander set, yeah, we go. He's done. The other, was it another Kaiju, or was that the OI? Just the OI, I think it was. That was left, he took him down. But not a bad round, it turned out in the end. Nice bit of earning. I didn't have any bonuses on that. I'm not sure if I got an XP bonus there or what. Let's have a look. Damage unlimited. No. 10,000 extra. 2 points. More money. Day of premium. Crew XP. So no, that was just standard XP for it with that 30% bonus and 30% silver. So quite, it's, you know, sometimes it can earn quite a bit, but it's under sort of. Yeah, I don't often earn that amount in that tank, I must admit. That was quite a surprise. In fact, I can't remember the last time I earned more than 100 grand in the Kaiju. Probably when it first came out, nobody knew where to shoot at it. But anyway, here we are for the next replay. So yeah, that was one of the slightly better rounds than having it. And, you know, it is different now because people know where to shoot it, and there is that sort of mentality with some tanks where some people, as soon as they see one, they just press that button. You know, they switch the premium ammo and just start spamming premium ammunition at you. And I'm trying, you know, yes, there are certain tanks in the game where you're probably going to have to do that. You know, I'm thinking like Shermans with 128 pen. If you can't get around the back or the side of one of these things, you probably are going to have to swap to your premium ammo, because frontally there's no particular weak spots. The commander's hatches are not really weak spots on these Japanese heavies like they are on a lot of other tanks. I suppose they are to a degree, I think, but they are still quite well armoured. But there are some tanks that you know they really don't need to swap to the premium ammo. They just need to actually aim instead of just locking on and sort of aiming for centre mass. Because as I've shown, you know, the flat panels on those mini turrets are good for getting a shot in. The actual, I don't know what you'd call it really. It's the flatter sort of panel, or the flatter plate behind the mini turrets as well, because it's flatter. You know, it's still probably going to be maybe 155, 160 effective thickness, but it's still thinner than the upper glacis. You know, it's still a thinner effective thickness, I think is probably more accurate. So that's where you normally, or that's where I normally try and go for those flat parts on the mini turrets, or the flatter plate behind them. And you have to sort of try and wiggle the front a little. It's hard because the traverses on this are so unbelievably slow. In fact, I was just thinking actually, because I'm going to do the VK101P, you know, the new Tier 8 German Heavy. I was thinking of doing that review tomorrow because I've got footage for it. And I was just thinking earlier that's very, very reminiscent of the Japanese Super Heavies. It does remind me a lot of them. You know, very tough frontally, not really any frontal weak spots to speak of, but just in trouble if anything gets around the side of you or behind you. Now I went for the low glacis on that T150, but I missed. It was at quite an angle as well, so I don't know if that would have gone through, but I think I missed him. And I'm just going to keep trying to work this corner. Now, oh, can't get my gun down. The left-hand side of my tank is slightly up. I went for the ammo block location, but bounced. And yeah, just at the foot of this hill, the ground is slightly higher on my left than it is on my right, so I had a bit of trouble getting my gun down to him then. So I've pulled out a bit more, so I'm on a bit more of a level. And there we go, managed to get one through. And if I was in anything else other than one of these, I'd probably be side scraping off the corner rather than doing what I'm doing now. But with how the ground comes out off there, oh, took a bit of a dodgy shot and pulled back. Yeah, with how the rocks slope down, it's kind of hiding that left side of my tank. And side scraping off here in this, I don't know, it kind of gives them a flatter target of that, again, that plate behind the mini turrets to shoot at. And it also exposes my much weaker sides. Now if I can get that flat panel, I can. That flat plate on the side. Kind of glad they're not round. I'm glad they're sort of hexagonal. Is it hexagonal? Are they hexagonal? Have they got more sides? I don't know. But anyway, I'm glad they're angular. Oh, just bounced off that KV-1S. Back off against that enemy Kaiju's pushing round. Didn't mean to get in the way there. I've been trying to time my shots so that they've got me, you know, they've got time to see me moving forwards. And again, flat panel. Do take a hit from something. And in fact, I think Artie takes one shot at me in this round, and that's your lot, and he misses anyway. But now everything there's dead. We can push round. Well, the rest of the team that went up the hill, they've won over the hill up there, and are now about to take down that TD, hopefully. And I've got myself, there's a medium behind me, Artie, I'm not sure who he's covering, but there's also a TD behind me as well. So if I move down here, fingers crossed I can spot. I was just checking what was left. There's a T1 Heavy, KV-1S, and Artie, and it's Artie that I'm worried about because I've been spotted. There we go, I feel confident to push around and try and spot what's around here. Cheeky little lock on. These are quite devastating to things like, you know, to the tier 5s. They do take off a lot of health. It's yeah, it's a you know, it's a hefty chunk of health down at tier. I mean, obviously this is tier 6, but it sees a lot of tier 5s. So for a tier 5 to lose around 300 health, that's a big chunk of their health pool gone. Well, as you saw there with the T1 Heavy, it was nearly half his health, or you know, as near as damn it in one shot. Now there's Artie. He's obviously come behind those rocks to try and get a better shot. I'm assuming at me, but now he's on the move, and yeah, he should have just pulled back a bit from those rocks instead of trying to move in. That was his mistake, and I managed to take him down. And now it's just a case of the KV-1S, who's decided to try and charge me and get around me. And I thought he was actually going to ram me then at one point. I should have flicked it to the side. And luckily he bounced, and he's far enough away from me to get my gun down and finish him off. I did try and track him as he went to get around me, but I didn't quite manage it. Didn't lead him enough. There you go, the Kaiju O-I revisit. So as you can see, and as I said before, it has had 45mm taken off its rear armour, turret and hull. It has made a bit of a difference to it, and you do notice it, but as long as you play it accordingly and don't have that sort of confidence in your rear armour anymore, I think you'll still get on with it. But it's an easy one to try out because, you know, it's just a Tech Tree Tier 6 Japanese O-I. And I think it's in the Proving Grounds at the minute. The last 3 tutorial missions, I've got 3 of the monster tanks, so there you go. But anyway, there you go, Kaiju O-I revisit. I hope you've enjoyed that, and I'll be back tomorrow with another video, possibly in the morning with the VK review. So until then, take care of that, and I'll catch you next time. See you later.